Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning to all the listeners wherever you happen to be in the world. Uh, Welcome to Talking Points. I've got today Godfrey Nyamgure and Grace to help us with this discussion. The um, topic there is go home and work like a man. This is a quotation from Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. And we are trying to relate that to our politics in Zimbabwe. And to paraphrase that quotation, I'm saying that go home and implement the reforms like a man. Okay, Godfrey, are you
Mhm.
ready to read the passage from Chinua Achebe?
Yes, yes, I shall read this passage. It says, many years ago, when Okonkwo was still a boy, his father, Unoka, had gone to consult Agbala. The priestess in those days was a woman called Chika. She was full of power of her god and she was greatly feared. Unoka stood before her and began his story, wrote Achebe in his book, Things Fall Apart. Every year he said sadly, before I put any crop in the earth, I sacrifice a cock to Ani, the owner of the all land. It is the law of our fathers. I also kill a cock at the shrine of Ijekuko, the god of yams. I clear the bush and set fire to it. When it is dry, I sow the yams. When the first rains has fallen, the stack and stack them when the young tendrils appear. I weed. Hold your parcel. Peace, screamed the priestess, her voice terrible as it echoed through the dark void. You have offended neither the gods nor your fathers. And when a man is at peace with his gods and his ancestors, his harvest will be good or bad according to the strength of his arm. You, Unoka, are known in all the clan for the weakness of your machete and your hoe. When your neighbors go out with their axe to cut down virgin forests, you sow your yams on exhausted farms that take no labor to clear. They cross 7 rivers to make their farms. You stay at home and offer sacrifice to a reluctant soil. Go home and work like a man. That's the court. Things fall apart, Achebe.
Interesting.
Thank you very much, Godfrey. I don't know, Nyara, do you want to say something there before we move on?
Go home and work like a man. That's what you people need to do. We need to go back home and work this thing out. Not from behind here.
Okay,
Because
now
we are
it's
not working.
it's it's been
Well,
directed at those in the diaspora now.
Yes. Those in the diaspora, we need to go back home and work like a man there to get the reforms that we want. Not us doing it from here where we are
It's
comfortable.
it's
well,
also
that's an interesting take, but nonetheless, I think what we also are trying to say here is that there are those on the ground already. There may be millions, maybe 4 or 5 million. That there's still 15 million back at home. The question still remains: why is those back at home not doing anything? And in this particular case, more so when those people have been elected. to do so. And maybe just I'll quickly go to the background I was going to fill in. We've got to remember here that MDC, the Movement for Democratic Change, were elected on a ticket to implement democratic changes. And 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 as the party's name implies, and for the last 22 years, they've not implemented even one meaningful democratic change. And 5 of those 22 years were in the GNU, where they had the golden opportunity to implement the reforms. SADC nagged MDC to implement the democratic reforms during the GNU, but they were ignored. And as a last minute attempt, they did advise MDC not to participate in the 2013 elections without the reforms. And they actually told the MDC leaders to their faces that if you participate in the 2013 elections without reforms, you lose. The whole process is already done. But again, the SADC leaders were ignored by Morgan Tsvangirai and company. We had the elections in 2018. Everybody who participated in those elections as observers, the European Union, the Americans, the Commonwealth, and anybody with any democratic credentials at all came out with a report and condemned those elections as not being free, fair, and credible. And some of them, like the European Union, went to the extent of producing a list of recommendations to make sure that the next elections are free, fair, and credible. None of those reforms have been implemented. Yet here we are, MDC are still keen to participate in those elections. I think that is the problem we have here. You know, MDC have been told, go home and work like a man, go home and implement the reforms. But MDC have disregarded that and continue to participate, pretend we can have elections without any meaningful reforms. I think that is where I think we are in Zimbabwe. Over to you, Godfrey.
Yes, it does make sense in that respect.
Yes.
You are saying that they are just continuing to work on, as Achebe called it, tired soil or reluctant soil, where nothing really can come out, or whatever they desire to reap will never be, you can never yield it from that soil. Yes, there is a need to look at, in this case, reforms, because continuing to work on the soil that exists at the moment produces nothing.
I don't know whether Grace want to say something there too.
Yeah, I understand what your both are saying. Even in the book where he says the cock is sacrificed on the land and on the yam tree, yam farm and all that. The same thing has happened in Zimbabwe with people being killed as sacrifice for the sake of the reforms to take place, but they're not taking place because the leadership that is there does not understand fully what needs to be done. They need to be educated themselves about it. Also, the ordinary population has to be educated as well. so that they understand, yes, you might want elections, but at the end of the day, if your leadership does not explain to you what it entitles you to do and what you'll get out of it with or without the reforms, it doesn't work. They need to be educated about it without sacrificing any more lives.
I think I agree with you there that the populace needs to be educated. But in this particular case, what we've got to also to remember here is that when it comes to reforms, you and me cannot just walk in into parliament and say we want reforms and I'm going to implement reforms. You elect representatives to do that. This is why I said at the beginning that MDC were elected on a ticket to implement the democratic reforms, and they failed to do so. And I think they are taking advantage of the ordinary people being ill-informed, not knowing what the reforms are all about, and so forth. But nonetheless, they were elected on that ticket, and they failed to implement even one meaningful reform. And to make things worse here is that the opposition leaders themselves are the ones who are arguing that they can uh, we can carry on without reforms. Like I said, the European Union came up with a list of reforms that needed to be carried out after the 2018 elections, and none of those reforms have been carried out. So the question then is, why is the opposition still insisting in participating in these elections, knowing that no reforms were implemented? SADC told them in no uncertain terms in 2013, do not go into these elections without reforms. And still, they went on, they ignored the advice from SADC and participated. We have got a situation here. We have elected representatives. Like they're like the father of the family. Okonga, who, as the father, you are supposed to be playing your
Mhm.
role as the father, as the adult, to go and clear the fields and plant the yams, and he chose the easy route out and always picked the easy task of working on the tired and old soil that required little labor, but
Right.
of course, it very little yield because it wasn't fertile.
Mm.
Mhm.
Ye- Yes, you are right there. There are a few things that we need to look at. I also see where that court applies in this instance, and that they meaning the opposition is continuing, maybe even trying to load the soil in the case of Achebe with fertilizer or with more votes, knowing very well the ground is so tired that it cannot even, no amount of fertilizer will make it rich at all. So, yeah, in a way, that court really applies to the case we have at hand here regarding working on a system that cannot produce the desired results. Year
Yes, you
in,
want to
year
say
out.
something there?
Yeah, I understand with what Godfrey is saying, and also said at the end of the day, if we direct people, okay, for example, people of the, if they don't communicate with those, the leaders who are MP, communicate to them direct, to there just doing what's on the ground. We go ahead with it. Thinking it's why the diaspora nations are saying don't go into the elections. So those who are also come to be educated so that they fully understand what they are if they go into the elections. As it is for going ahead, but they have known. They know already they are rigged, but we did go through the elections. We lost, we were rigged. They already, so that will be the normal norm for Zimbabweans, which means who know the know-how about the elections, that they will not be free and fair. They should educate the people who want to be MPs or senators or whatever, able to under the core of, so the voters as well. Then we can go home and do work like a man and reproduce. The
Okay, I was going to play
reforms that I wanted.
Adding on to that one, I think educating.
That's me.
Sorry, are you still continuing? Oh, okay. Your line was
No.
cutting off a little bit, though. But I was just going to add that.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. I was for this. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Okay. Can I come in?
Yeah, go in. Go ahead, Godfrey.
Okay. I was going to add onto Grace's contribution there that education is really important. In this case, people need to know what is failing them. It's not because the soil has no fertilizer. It's not the lack of fertilizer. It's not lack of votes. It's actually the soil itself. There's need for a change, an overhaul of that soil. So people need to really know what is failing them. In this case, it's the system.
I was just going to play this video by Mapena, which he is one of the opposition leaders who is encouraging people to go and register to vote and participate in these elections. You can just listen to this one. Sorry, Godfrey, go ahead. I think I need to sort it out. For some reason, it's not playing. I need to find out why it's not playing. You go ahead while I sort it out.
Yeah, but I think we have listened to it in a way. Just continuing on that, I think that's what opposition really needs to push. They are just silent on the need for reforms, need for an overhaul of the soil. It's like they have not really identified the problem which they have at hand. You may, okay, you go back to history where they failed to implement the reforms. On that, I can criticize them for the failure to explain why they failed to implement the reforms. They should at least account to the people so that we can all appreciate.
Revolutionary Greetings Comrades.
I've
got it working now.
Oh, it's working, okay.
Of the Zimbabwe Communist Party. In this video, we're informing you that in Zimbabwe, elections are not rigged on polling day. What happens is every party contesting elections is represented through their party agents and polling stations. When ballot boxes arrive, they will inspect that no ballot paper has been tampered in the morning when the elections before the casting of votes. They inspect potential voters. People are not registering to vote because they are saying, what is the use of registering to vote when elections are going to be rigged? So the opposition leadership is disarming potential voters with this continuous rigging case. And the ZANU-PF knows pretty well that if millions of people register to vote, they have no mechanism to rig an election. This is why they are beating up opposition members. This is why they are disrupting press conferences. This is why they are creating pushing polling stations, because precisely they know that millions of people, if they vote, ZANU-PF will not be able to rig an election. So when the opposition leadership is preoccupied with the narrative that says elections are rigged in Zimbabwe, we are disarming potential voters. Let us encourage every voter to register and vote. And the message is clear that if millions of us vote, ZANU-PF will not be able to rig an election. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Revolutionary greetings, comrades. We all know that the ZANU-PF will never conduct free and fair elections. But the narrative, which has now become a song, that elections are rigged in Zimbabwe, is disarming potential voters. People are not registering to vote because they are saying, what is the use of registering to vote when elections are going to be rigged? So the opposition leadership is disarming potential. Okay. I don't know. I think we've all heard that article. Basically, the argument there the opposition is giving now is that ZANU-PF is not rigging the elections. In other words, if we go back to the parallel of the book that we were talking about, Achebe, this is Okonga saying, no, there's nothing wrong with the soil. You know, where I'm farming, that is good soil, insisting on that. In fact, if you, those who have not read the book, will tell you that the whole book is ends with Okonga. He was never he was never a rich man at all. In fact, his son despised him because of the poverty of the family, because of his laziness. That means he never took the advice of um, he received from the lady, that he has got to go home and work like a man. He never took that advice. I think that is where our problem is. When the opposition is saying the elections are not rigged, it becomes a problem, particularly when you've got the electorate who do not understand what is going on here. And I think as leaders, at least they should understand what's going on, that elections are rigged. I mean, it beggars belief when we have got a situation in 2008, for instance, where in the March election, the opposition got a staggering 73% of the votes. And then the ZANU-PF rigging machine was switched on, and they stopped the results being announced. And then they spent the next 6 weeks whittling down the 73% for Morgan Tsvangirai to 47%, just enough to fall below the 50% and force the runoff. And during the runoff, used wanton violence. If that is not rigging, what is rigging? Don't know whether you want to come in there, Godfrey.
Yes, that is a true example of rigging there, because we have figures that were somehow changed down to one that suits them, the ones in government. They opposition know that the elections are being rigged. There's no question about it. But somehow they don't seem to know how these elections are being rigged. Now that's why they seem to say they have formulas or strategies that can outdo those rigging techniques by the government. They just go short of a full understanding of how these elections are being rigged. They don't look at the actual system, the process from the beginning to the end. Maybe they just focus on the polling day, which probably they think that's where the rigging occurs. Yet it starts from very far back in the system.
Grace, you want to come in there? Okay, I don't know whether she's still there.
Okay.
Well, what I can say there, Godfrey, is we can we can say the opposition did not know, but to be quite honest, they actually did know, because if you look at the 2008 elections, I mean, the vote rigging was so blatant. It's impossible that you can say, but you don't know what happened. You know what happened. And in some of these cases, they've always complained about ZANU-PF has stolen the elections. Even if they didn't know how it was done, they know the elections were stolen. But the most important thing is they were given the opportunity to implement the democratic reforms to make sure that ZANU-PF does not steal the next elections. The main problem we have with the opposition during the GNU itself, they became comfortable. There cannot be any denying that ZANU-PF, Robert Mugabe, saw to it that they were really comfortable. He denied them absolutely nothing. They got ministerial Mercedes-Benz or whatever they are, the limos. They got generous salaries and allowances. And Morgan Tsvangirai got the US $4 million house mansion in Highlands. The only time MDC leaders were not happy in the GNU was when Robert Mugabe was dragging his feet on letting Morgan Tsvangirai move into the Zimbabwe House. And they even got to the point where they boycotted the cabinet meetings. And it was only then that Mugabe decided he was going to buy Morgan Tsvangirai this mansion. And as soon as they got the mansion, they went back to the cabinet meetings and they cooperated throughout. I had the opportunity to meet one of the ZANU PF cronies during that time. And like every most other Zimbabweans who were concerned and were following what was happening here, one of the things I said to him is, why is MDC failing to implement the reforms? They've not implemented any meaningful reform. And this was something like 2012 or late 2011. And the guy he laughed in my face. And he told me in, in plain English, you know, that MDC will never implement any meaningful reforms because they are comfortable. They will never rock the boat. Initially, I didn't understand. It didn't really sink in. But when you on reflection, you realize that is exactly what has happened here. And I think most Zimbabweans do not want to accept that reality. And it's most unfortunate because refusing to accept reality does not change the reality on the ground. The truth of the matter is FDC failed to implement reforms because they were comfortable during the GNU. That is the reality. They are participating in these elections because they also know that yes, ZANU-PF is rigging these elections, but also ZANU-PF is giving away a number of gravy train seats, and they find those irresistible, and that's why they keep on participating. I think the parallel with the Chinua Achebe story it rings true, and I think we need to sit on the opposition and say, no, listen, you need to work like a man. The reforms are tough. Yes, nobody's saying they're going to be easy, but that is what you were elected there for. MDC people were elected on the ticket that they will implement the democratic changes, as their name implies. And we cannot keep on pretending we can somehow have a successful, democratic, free, and prosperous nation without reforms. Whereas ZANU-PF has got the free hand to rig elections and loot the resources. That is the most unfortunate reality that we must deal with.
Mm. Yes, that's true. Really, there is a definite need for reforms. On the subject of gravy seats that you refer to, I think the problem there is just between the two parties, opposition parties. They seem to fear that, say, in the case of participation, if one party participates, they will be guaranteed the seats, and the other party that has not participated will be drawn into extinction because they will become irrelevant politically. So it's a tussle between the two parties, not with the ruling party, but between the two opposition parties. On the reforms, one becomes suspicious that the opposition really wants also to get into power and use and exploit the loopholes within the current electoral process. So it really becomes suspicious because it doesn't make sense to not hear them talk about implementation of or changing the whole electoral process. It doesn't. It raises questions really why they are silent on that.
Yeah, I would accept your argument there um, about the opposition being reluctant to boycott the elections because they can't trust the other side to do the same. I think that argument was said by many people, particularly in the opposition. In fact, David Coulthard says it in his book that in 2013, the reason why MDC Ngube uh, would not boycott those elections is because they could not trust MDCT to boycott the elections. And they fear that if they boycott, MDCT will get all the seats and they lose out. But that is precisely what the greed is all about. Because if you move that one back also to during the GNU, like I said, they were comfortable, and like this other ZANU-PF crony was boasting that they were comfortable, they'll never rock the boat. That is exactly what he meant. You know, they were so comfortable they did not want to rock the boat. They forgot their principal purpose of being elected was to implement the democratic reforms so that elections will be free, fair, and credible. So the minute they are comfortable, they want to forget the reforms. It's not different from Okonga's mentality. He wants to work. He doesn't want the hard work. Yeah, he wants the easy work, and therefore, then that's why he keeps on going to the old field, which is not hard to work on. It doesn't take much labor to clear the ground and to plant the yams and expects a bumper harvest. And in this particular case, in fact, when with the opposition, they are comfortable. They don't care about the people who elected them into power because the ordinary person has not gained anything from the continuing ZANU-PF dictatorship. But the opposition, or at least the few who get those few seats, are getting something. So it is a question of the people themselves are really waking up and saying, no, this is totally unacceptable. And the opposition here is selling us cheap. And that point must be made. And that, in fact, if ordinary people were to wake up to that reality, that will put pressure on the opposition to stop participating in meaningless elections. Nyaraza, I don't know whether you're still there.
Yes, she says, I saw a note here from her. She says she lost sound. I don't know if she managed to gain sound.
Okay, if she can hear us, well, what I can say is she can log out and try log back in.
Okay. Now coming back to this video that you played, what is our take on that one? What do we see in that video? That Mabena video.
Well, the whole point of Mabena's argument is that people who are saying you should not keep on participating in these meaningless elections, they are actually disempowering the electorate, which is not true. You know, the whole point of after 42 years of rigged elections, to keep on participating in a process that is so flawed that even if you get 73%, you cannot win those elections. It's absolutely insane. You know, Albert Einstein defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different results. That is insanity. And that is what we are looking at here. You know, we are looking at a situation here where we uh, we have got a situation where some people are keeping on participating in elections and expecting a different result, which is totally meaningless. You are not going to defeat ZANU PF uh, um, if you've got an election with the present system. ZANU PF is like somebody playing with a dice that has got six on all six sides. You know, you cannot bet against that person saying they will fail to throw a six. They cannot throw anything else. And to keep on saying no, we must still continue on betting on it and participating, particularly when you know by participating you're actually giving legitimacy to the system. That becomes a problem, and that is the problem we've got to face here. And I think it's totally dishonest to keep on pretending that is not a serious problem. The opposition here, particularly the opposition leaders, most of them, they are hoping to get the few seats. That is what they're hoping to get, and that's all they care about. If they get those few seats, they're comfortable. They don't care the fact that the country is continuing under ZANU PF rule, has gone to the dogs. They don't care about that. But I think as ordinary people, or as ordinary citizens, we've got to raise the concern and raise the alarm and inform the people that that is what is happening and they should be aware of it. Welcome, Nyarazai. Sorry, we lost you there.
No, that's fine. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you?
Maybe maybe there's something wrong with
No, that's
your
fine.
signal because of you can switch off the video if you want and just have audio.
Do that actually. It could be that. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Yeah, that. Oh, no. That's fine. You can carry on.
Okay. The other thing,
Can you hear me
Godfrey,
now?
that you mentioned also there about participating and some participating and others not. Let's not forget here that we have got actually an example in history. In 2000 and in 1976, Ian Smith managed to get Ebo Musorewa and Dawaning Stole to participate in their internal settlement. ZANU PF and ZAPU at the time refused to participate. The fact that the Musorewa and Stole participated did not give Ian Smith legitimacy, because everybody could see that internal settlement was never going to be uh, bring free, fair elections to everybody, give blacks a meaningful say in the electoral process. It was a loaded system. It favored the whites. You know, the whites still had total power there. It was supposed to be just symbolic. So in this particular case, even if we going to have half of some of the opposition parties boycotting 2023, when everybody is saying those elections are so flawed, it's meaningless. Surely anybody will say to those people, you are doing the right thing. Those who are participating, we know why they are participating. They're only after the few seats on offer. So the decision is really very simple: to keep on participating, to give legitimacy to the dictatorship. It's the most ridiculous argument that anyone can give. The opposition would never come out right and say we are participating in these elections out of greed. That is the truth. And by putting them on the spot, we are actually forcing them to accept that they are participating out of greed. Period.
Yeah. True.
Yes.
Do you want to react to that, Jarazai, if you're still there?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Go
All
ahead.
right. Okay, Godfrey, go ahead.
Yeah. This Mabena video, he says we discourage people. Those are some of the voices that come on these platforms that do mislead people. People, as Nyaraza said, they need to be educated. There isn't much really here to, it's not rocket science that people should see where the problem lies. The people of the level of Mabena, they should understand this even better than most of the people from Dotito or wherever. So if they're in the forefront saying that people should continue to load the ballot boxes, knowing very well that in Achebe, the soil is bleached, there is nothing you can get out of that soil, or the bucket is leaking, you continue to load it with water, you will never get it full. You will never carry it home full at all. So we need people that go in the forefront on these platforms. We can take them as they are also leading the people back in the villages. If those people start talking with the same voice, I think the general public will begin to see sense.
They agree with you as well. In this particular case, actually, what is sometimes surprising is that people like Mabena, they are in the opposition. They were not in the GNU, as far as I know, and therefore then they uh, cannot be held responsible for having failed to implement even any meaningful reforms during the GNU. But I've never heard some of them uh, address that point, that the main opposition, Triple C, now and before that MDC alliance, and then before that MDC, they never implemented any meaningful reforms. One has got to wonder whether some of these opposition leaders were even aware of the fact that MDC had the opportunity to implement reforms. So one has got to wonder also whether, even if we were to have another GNU today, if you've got an opposition that is so incompetent, they will not implement reforms again. And this is where we also get to separate the uh, the quality opposition from the mediocre opposition. And in Zimbabwe, I have to say that we have got too much of the mediocre opposition. The number of opposition parties that participated in 2008, 2018 rather, knowing fully well that no meaningful reforms have been implemented, is shocking. You know, and this coming election, 2023, I think we can expect, if it's not for the inflated charges uh, to be paid when they are coming in to register to participate, I think we would have probably seen the same number, if not more, of the presidential candidates. Last time it was 23. Because Mnangagwa is offering all those who participate these pollard benefits. There's no doubt that most of them are looking at those pollard benefits. They are with glassy eyes. They will participate because they also want some of those pollard benefits. And the pollard benefits is no different from those few gravy train seats that we're talking about. All Mnangagwa is saying is, some of you who fail to get the few gravy train seats will give them the pollard benefits. All they've got to do is, of course, stand up and publicly say the elections were free, fair, and credible, and Mnangagwa is the legitimate president, and they'll get the Pollard benefits. Pollard, that's the only purpose of Pollard. It has got no other political purpose.
Yeah, so he's basically creating his own opposition, propping up his own opposition.
Well, he's basically doing what you were saying before. Remember when this argument started, you were saying the opposition A is afraid that if they boycott the elections, opposition B will participate and win all the seats. All what is Mnangagwa is doing with Pollard is making sure all the opposition, including those who know they have no chance of winning the presidential election, or who have got very little chance of winning the parliamentary seats, they will still participate. Because one of the biggest things that Mnangagwa was able to show to the world in 2018, when people were saying, well, these elections are not free, fair, and credible, he was able to turn around and say, wait a minute, how can you say that? Look how many people are participating. For the presidential elections alone, 23. And I can tell you now, for the parliamentary candidates, I think we had more than 1,000 vying for the 200 or so seats. There were so many of them. And how can you have so many people contesting those elections if they are not free, fair, and credible? That is his argument. And the world has got to turn around and say, well, if Zimbabweans are happy with this system, who are we to say, no, this system is flawed? That is where our problem is. And I think now is the time to tell ordinary Zimbabweans that by participating, you are not helping your situation. You are not helping Zimbabwe achieve meaningful change, because you are endorsing the process, which is so flawed that it totally is meaningless. How can you have meaningless elections without even a verified voters roll? Common sense would dictate to you, at least let's have a voters roll. Let's see who is eligible to vote. If you don't even know who is eligible to vote, this is the reason why ZANU-PF doesn't want to release the voters' roll, because they know. But if you were to see the voters' roll, you begin to realize this election cannot be won by anybody else other than ZANU-PF.
Mm.
So is it not possible to get someone within the opposition party, the main party, to come onto your program to try and get him to explain to the people why they're doing that? Or any other party that is going to be going into the election, if you know of anyone, so they can explain to the ordinary Zimbabwean why they would rather go for the elections and not go into them.
Yeah, I think it's a point there
Because maybe
from
our point of
Sister Chris.
view doesn't work. Maybe our point of view is totally different from these.
I think she has a point there. We need to find out from them where their confidence in the system is, how they expect to win. Why are they entering? Because if you are entering competition, you are saying you stand a chance to win. So we will need to ask them where their confidence stems from. So I think you are very right there, Sis, Grace.
Well, my response to that one would be that personally, I have tried to engage some of these opposition parties, but the only reason why they are not likely to come to a program like this one is that they know that. I mean, we have made our position very clear that participating in these elections is meaningless, is insane. They don't want that. They want a platform which will endorse their position, i.e., that yes, we must participate in these elections. That's why you never get them. I mean, on the issue of, for instance, why did they fail to implement reforms during the GNU? Personally, I've yet to hear uh, some of these opposition MDC leaders admit that point. They've avoided answering that question again and again and again, and I think you'll not get them to answer it because they know there's absolutely no excuse for it. You know, so in this particular case, I mean, okay, the three of us here, if you know somebody who will be willing to come on a discussion program like this, why not? Let's invite them. I've absolutely nothing, nothing against it. I think it's a wonderful idea. The only problem is we are not likely to get any one of them because
I
they
might be
want.
able to get someone.
Sorry, you can get one.
I can think I can get someone. I'll speak to them tomorrow.
Yeah, let's. Personally, I welcome that. Let's have a meaningful discussion. In fact, if anything at all, that is one of the things that has been lacking in Zimbabwe since independence. If you want to, if you ask me, the public media is so tightly controlled to the point of becoming ridiculous. You can't have any meaningful debate. I don't remember ever listening to any meaningful, balanced debate on ZBC. Herald, if you write them anything critical of the regime, it will never see
No, yeah, you won't.
Don't see the daylight of it.
exactly. It'll
Yeah.
be edited out and thrown out the minute next time they see your name, they throw it out. Before,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good suggestion. That really, and maybe it could be that we are missing something. Which
I mean, what's wrong with debate?
Mm.
We can only whatever, even if they try to justify it, we can tell them what we think, that it is wrong, and we go our separate ways.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with debate. If we can get somebody, why not? Let's try to get somebody. I totally agree with that. I totally endorse that. The more, the merrier, in fact.
Mm.
And more women, please. I feel outnumbered.
So I hope the one you are going to recommend is a woman.
No, actually, it's not. Okay, I'll be honest with you. He's my nephew. He wants to go in. He wants to go into these elections. He's campaigning. So I think if he was to hear where he's coming from and where you're coming from, you might get a better picture, because he's more concentrating in the rural areas than in the urban areas. So he might give us a picture of how he's trying to balance it, or he can also bring in more people onto the discussion on the day.
If he's in the rural areas, it's even better, because it looks like it's easier to win in the urban areas. So you'll probably be the right person to
because
engage
the
with.
last time he did go into the elections, he lost by a very small margin, though.
Yeah, let's
If I
get him
speak to
in.
him tomorrow, I'll speak to him tomorrow, and then I'll find out if it's with other guys who are willing to come onto it. But I'm sure he will.
Oh.
Well, while we are on this, what would be the best time to have these discussions?
Well, from Zimbabwe's point of view, well, it will depend. If it's for Zim, it will be maybe around 7, 8 will be better, because we are 2 hours behind now.
Okay. Oh, there are 2 hours now. Okay.
Because they are 2 hours ahead of us now.
Maybe let's say we are the ones who are supposed to maybe adjust to their time. So find out from them what time is.
Yes.
Unless Wilbert, if you are engaged.
Yeah, I'll do that.
No, I'm available as long as I know in advance what time we are going to do it. I'm available.
Okay.
No, I will speak to him, and then I'll let you discuss. Or I can give you the number for his number. You discuss with him and you sort it out.
No, well, I mean, you have you tell him what we want. If he wants to give me a call, give him my number. I can speak to him. Or if he wants me to call him, I can call him. So maybe it's best if you discuss it with him first.
Yeah, I will first, and then I'll pass on the numbers.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Any concluding remarks, Godfrey?
Yes, education is very important, as Sister Grace brought it up at the very beginning, that we need to educate both the people who are in the forefront and those who are in the back, in the villages. So all-round education.
Thank you, Godfrey. Grace, you want to make your closing remarks?
Well, the main thing, as Godfrey had said, is education, and we need to think of a way of going back home to work on the ground as well. Whether we are here or we are home, we all need to work at the same level to get the process done properly.
Okay, thank you very much. My only closing remark would be to go back to the original argument, that we have got to tell our politicians that they should not be looking for the easy way out. We have a dictatorship. The dictatorship is not going to give up power just because they are tired of being in power. or they feel sorry for the people. The longer they've stayed, the hungrier they've become, the more determined they are to stay in power. We need to uh, face the reality. The issue of reform is paramount. It is absolutely nonsensical to think you can have any meaningful change without the democratic reforms.
Reforms.
I think we need to tell our politicians to go home and implement the reforms, the democratic reforms, and not try to shortchange people and telling them that they can have change and economic prosperity without reforms. That is not true. Thank you very much again for coming tonight, and I'll advise you tomorrow once we know what time we'll have the next program. Thanks so much again. Good night.
Thank
Good
you so
night.
much. Good night.
And at the very last minute, then I recognize that the sister we have here is a well-known sister to me as well.
Okay.